Okay, how's everyone doing? Good? Are we ready? I told Nikita, I was like, give me like the 5 o'clock spot if we can. That'd be amazing. So here we go. Yeah. Where's the drinks? Bring them out. So one of the most important things that I do, and really for the past 20 years, has been to have a perspective about the future and where we're going. Because at IA Collaborative, that's fundamentally what we offer. We understand emerging behaviors, and then we build the future. And as I shared, I have a number of team members here. As I shared a little over 2 years ago, I've never felt more responsibility and really homework in a lot of ways to have a strong perspective on the future. And it's never been more opaque, and I don't know if you feel this way, but right now it creates what I call future ambivalence. Does anybody know this term ambivalence? What I love about it is it means you feel strongly in two completely opposite directions, okay? And I think this time can make you feel that way, and it's important that I cut through and not platitude it up with what the future looks like, because our clients count on us to lead the forefront for them. They trust us to bring them forward, and historically that has been really hey, look at this, accelerated, inventive, but still graspable change. It actually got worse when I looked at the monitor. It's a good learning, okay? And these are things that we could understand. Oh, okay, hard algorithms, we can pull that off. But recently, there we go. But recently, it's been quite different. And I would imagine other people feel this way as well. In order to innovate at speed, we've had to build our own intelligence stack. Early 2025, we started burning billions of tokens, leveraging and maximizing because we were building things with and for our clients. And really the driver of what I'm calling how change has changed is that we are at a mass pivot point. And I think we should just admit that to ourselves, that we are at what's called a general purpose technology pivot point. And you can remember because it's a GPT. And general purpose technology are things that we can actually learn from, right? Printing press, somebody shared the Industrial Revolution earlier, compute, intelligence. These are general purpose technologies, but the good news is, while history doesn't repeat itself, sometimes it rhymes. I think Mark Twain said this. If someone can find where that came from, bonus points. And what is really interesting is I went back and I researched these eras and said, where do we see consistencies or really, as we do in research, patterns? And there's a few things that are really interesting. One, they typically start with an era of incrementalism, where there's this reaction loop. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Hype, fear, critique, okay? And it keeps happening. Like the printing press, people are like, oh my gosh, it's gonna reinvent knowledge, which, I mean, you could say the Renaissance did it, maybe, but also it's gonna make it so we lose our memories. Our brains' memories will turn to mush because we are not writing things out. And also the printing press, there was this belief that you would basically be taking the soul of the work by not printing it, handwriting it. So the first few printing presses were actually written, okay? That's enough about the printing press. Nikita's like, if he doesn't get to the future, this is a lightning talk, He's like, where's the lightning? Then you move into this era of radical exemplars, which we see this as well from AI, right? But it's when there's pockets of the future that you can see, but they're really here before broad adoption because they don't have the ecosystems, or perhaps, this is a big one, risk is imbalanced because a new technology, the closer it gets to a consumer, the more risk typically you're taking on, which is why we're seeing some things like, has anybody heard of this company that they want unicorn with 2 people? They were like a GLP-1 organization. And one of the reasons they did it is because they didn't follow some of the regulations. They didn't know. It was really hard, but they leveraged an agentic workflow. And this is the type of example of a large corporation would say, we can't take the risk that far. And a big thing that you see is diffusion. So what frontier models can do versus what companies are willing to bring forward or have the aptitude for, or built the workflows for, are not aligned. Then we move into the next era. This is my favorite, pent-up potential. So we had a bunch of people raise their hand. There's a lot of designers here, right? So pent-up potential is when, like the debate about craft, okay? You have these amazing old tools that don't fit the new ways of working to harness this new technology, but you're creative. You're like, just give me the tools, point me at them, but there's new vocabulary, new things to use, so you feel this pent-up potential and you need to maximize it. And the reason I know this is true is because these eras have invented new designers. And it's helpful because some of them have the same names, like printing press, print design, industrial revolution, industrial design, compute era, interface, right? Like these are things that started to emerge. So, and I've been using this, Jeff will tell you, intelligence design, I believe, in hindsight, at some point, will be the foundational role that will come out of this, because this is an intelligence era. Then you move into the next native, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Unfortunately for us, and I didn't make this too aggressive, but it could almost be straight up, we are not going to get the time that other industries have been given, the grace. So printing press, centuries. Industrial revolution, generations. Compute, decades. I don't know, what do we got for intelligence? Like a couple months left? But, because we're not at, have you heard this term AI takeoff? Has anyone heard this yet? Like, we're not at AI takeoff. We're not at, we're way back here, okay? We're not at the top of an S curve where there's gonna be less equilibrium. And the real challenge, and this is big because obviously we have clients, we also make our own solutions. I've shared this in a few other talks. I really believe this. Martec's law tells us that technology moves exponentially, and this is the most exponential of the most exponential, okay? It's 2-factorial exponential, and organizations can only change logarithmically, and then when you throw something complex at it, they actually slow down, okay? So you can never make it past pent-up potential because it's too late. You miss the S-curve, and then forefront enterprises, what they do is they work above the S-curve, okay? So how do you get above the S-curve and really time the market to show up at the right time? Well, Matt, no platitudes, you got it. Number one, if you're at a company, or really if you're building your own, prioritize new value creation. You have to leave efficiency behind. And this is ridiculous because I've been talking about efficiency for a while, right? But you do not want to be the most efficient company in a market that time passed by, okay? You have to hit new value immediately. And there's like small examples of this I love. I did a talk in Copenhagen with Dan a few years ago. We met IKEA. They're very human-centered. I love this example. Does anyone hear this example from IKEA about the customer support? So we got a few. So they are like, well, what does AI actually help us do? And they said, well, it could help us unlock our interior design capabilities. So our customer support using AI tools can actually be interior design consultants, and then we could use some of the other efficiency, but they drove with the human-centered need. Second, shift into the intent economy. How many people have heard this term? We got a few, almost everybody, great. It's on everyone's mind. So the intent economy, and I'll give you a very straightforward skeuomorphic example, but our old economy was an attention economy. New economy is we take context and AI understands it, and then we exchange intent. Best example, skeuomorphic, I understand, but LLMs, they are, I don't have a slide for it. So they are, if you use an LLM to search for something, you spend 6x more time litigating what you're looking for than you would on a typical search. Then you are 80% more likely to stick with the decision you end up with. Then you're 7x more likely to transact than if you just Googled it, okay? That's the intent economy in one little context story, okay? All right, that was a note that like I'm almost done here, so I got to pick it up. So, what's interesting here is you say, well, great, I'm going to exchange context and I can use intent in different ways. Here's the challenge. If you want to leverage this, the most dangerous thing you can do as a leader, a researcher, is connect to an LLM, like a software, and throw data at it and say, great, this is something we can use, okay? It's like taking data, putting it in a landfill, and then the LLM, how LLMs work is they pick like 8 to 10 things, and then they say it back to you, and it feels like they know, right? And that's the reason that people think that LLMs are related to hallucination, okay? Which this is different. LLM's just a compute concept, okay, that predicts tokens. The problem is people don't context engineer it, and that's what's so important, and I won't get into a whole talk about that, but after LLM is level 0, data is level 1. That's a no-go zone, okay? Then you move into, you map your data and define it. Then you move in, and I'm always like, there's AI and ML hidden inside of all this. Then you move into actually logic and reasoning, so you give it rules and how to think through it. Then you move into output definition. What am I allowing it to output, and what are my guardrails? Then you eval it, okay? And you go back to the beginning, and until you get this right, it doesn't go back out, okay? So like for us, we can't build hallucination-prone solutions. And then, of course, next is owning your place in the agentic web. All right, I'll pick it up, Jordan, I got it. So what does it look like to have your place in the agentic web? And we're hearing a lot about AI agents these days. And this is really an easy way to understand it. So we started with PC web era where you're searching. You know, people are going into the internet and coming back out. Agentic web is basically, imagine like a membrane around the internet as we know it today. Like Alexa is an example of something that'll take you in and out of the internet and you don't go into it, right? So we used to have site snaps, now we have AIOS. Well, what am I talking about? What does that look like? Well, as we like to say at the Institute of Design, the future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. So what we need to do to be ready for something like the agentic web is you need to understand emerging behaviors, forefront applied tech, new economies, and possible futures. Sound familiar? You know, it's fundamentals. So if we think about what are some of the emerging behaviors we see that relate to the agentic web, this is an easy one. I love this one. It's like a red dot. It looks like play. Does this go? Does it play? Yeah, there we go. So this is from healthcare research we did. This is a GPT. It's called Actually Listens to You. This person we researched, her husband made a GPT of this famous menopause, like basically celebrity doctor, because she was upset with her own primary, okay? And then we also have observed this. Does anyone